My dear friends, in a world brimming with noise and ambition, where men chase after titles, trophies, and temporary applause, let us pause. Let us breathe. Let us ask one question, simple, eternal, and piercing. What is the one thing that makes anyone truly successful? Is it money, fame, power? No, no, and no, for all of these fade. The gold rusts, the crowds forget, the power withers. But one thing remains. One thing alone lifts a person from mediocrity to magnificence, from selfishness to sainthood. It is character formed through sacrifice. Success is not measured by the echo of applause or the size of your following, but by the quiet fidelity with which you live your purpose. Too often, we mistake popularity for greatness, as if the number of people watching us somehow adds meaning to our lives. But let us be clear, popularity is fleeting. It can rise like the tide and recede just as quickly. Purpose, however, is eternal. It endures storms, it survives silence, and it thrives even in obscurity. The most significant people in history were often not the most admired in their time. Think of the prophets, mocked, exiled, forgotten. Think of saints, who were often misunderstood, ridiculed, or left to die in loneliness. And above all, think of Christ himself. He did not gather a crowd to flatter him. He drew disciples who would carry a cross. The crowd that shouted Hosanna on Sunday cried, "Crucify him," by Friday. What does that teach us? That the masses are fickle, but purpose is faithful. When you live for purpose, you are not swayed by opinion polls or social trends. You are anchored in something deeper than approval. Purpose calls you to serve, not to be seen. It challenges you to stand alone if necessary, to speak truth when lies are popular, to act with courage when fear is fashionable. And that takes greatness of soul. There will be moments when you will be tempted to trade your purpose for praise, a chance to be liked, to be accepted, to be safe. But beware, every time you surrender your purpose for popularity, a part of your soul shrinks. The fire within begins to dim, and in time you may wake up to find yourself celebrated by others, yet empty within. Real success does not come from how many people know your name. It comes from whether you fulfilled the reason you were given breath. Did you build something that lasts? Did you touch a life in silence? Did you follow the path, even when it was narrow and no one else applauded? God does not call you to be famous. He calls you to be faithful. And that, my friends, is the highest success. To live in truth, to walk in purpose, and to be known not by the crowd, but by your Creator. So walk away from the bright lights if they blind your soul. Walk toward the light that never fades, the one found in a life of purpose. For in the end, it is not how many watched you live, but how well you lived when no one was watching. Discipline is not a word that excites the modern mind. It sounds restrictive, outdated, almost harsh in a world that prizes freedom, spontaneity, and comfort. But what most people fail to understand is that discipline is not the enemy of freedom. It is its foundation. Without discipline, freedom becomes chaos, choice becomes confusion, and life becomes directionless. Discipline gives shape to your potential. It molds raw desire into refined destiny. Look at any great musician, artist, athlete, or saint, and behind every moment of brilliance you will find hours, years of unseen practice. You will find sacrifices made in silence, temptations resisted in solitude, and countless days when the soul said yes to duty and no to comfort. That is discipline. The quiet, often thankless decision to do what is right rather than what is easy. In the spiritual life, discipline is even more essential. The path to heaven is narrow not because God is cruel, but because greatness demands focus. The soul, like a wild stallion, must be trained, not to destroy its strength, but to direct it. A man who cannot say no to himself cannot say yes to God. A woman who has not learned to govern her impulses will not be able to follow a calling that requires perseverance, sacrifice, and faithfulness. Discipline means rising when you want to sleep, praying when you feel dry, forgiving when every part of you wants to hold a grudge, speaking the truth when lying would be more convenient. It is not about punishment, it is about purpose. It is saying, my life has meaning and I will not waste it chasing passing pleasures. It also means structure, order, routine, the little things, making your bed, saying your prayers, finishing what you started. These habits, so simple and ordinary, become the scaffolding for something extraordinary. They give your days rhythm, your actions consistency, and your soul the environment it needs to grow. Even our Lord lived in discipline. For 30 years, he lived in quiet obedience before preaching a single word. He followed the customs, he respected his parents, he worked with his hands. When he fasted for 40 days in the desert, it was not to impress the devil, it was to prepare for his mission. He showed us that greatness is not a moment. It is a lifetime of preparation, forged in discipline. Without discipline, talent decays. Without discipline, dreams become delusions. Without discipline, the spirit grows weak, and the will loses its edge. But with discipline, steady, faithful, humble discipline, destiny unfolds, not all at once, not in thunderclaps or applause, but slowly, steadily, like a sunrise over the soul. And so, if you want to be truly successful, not merely admired but fulfilled, embrace discipline. Let it correct you, stretch you, strengthen you. Let it become your daily companion. For in the end, your destiny will not be determined by a moment of inspiration, but by 1,000 daily decisions to choose what is right, regardless of how you feel. Suffering is one of life's most misunderstood teachers. The modern world runs from it, hides it, medicates it, or denies it altogether. We are told that pain is pointless, that suffering is a detour, an interruption to the good life. But that is a lie. The truth is far more profound and far more redemptive. Suffering is not the enemy. It is the fire that purifies the soul. It is not a punishment. It is a passageway. Every great soul has walked through suffering, not around it, not above it, through it. And what they found on the other side was not bitterness, but beauty, not despair, but depth. It is in suffering that our illusions die, that our pride is stripped away, and that our hearts are opened to something greater than comfort, something eternal. Comfort is easy. It never asks anything of you. It doesn't change you. But suffering demands everything. And in that demand, it reveals who you really are. When you lose what you thought you could not live without, your plans, your strength, your reputation, you begin to discover what truly matters. And more than that, you begin to discover who truly matters. Christ himself did not redeem the world with a sermon. He redeemed it with suffering, with wounds, with blood. And what he did was not only to pay a price, but to reveal a pattern. He showed us that suffering embraced in love is not just endurable. It is powerful. It can redeem, it can sanctify, it can transform. There is no resurrection without a cross, no Easter Sunday without Good Friday, and so, too, in our lives. Our greatest victories are often born in our deepest valleys. Our character is not forged in times of ease, but in times of trial. The fire of suffering burns away the superficial and refines the soul like gold in a furnace. This is not to say suffering is easy. It isn't. It breaks us, it humbles us, but it also builds us. If we let it, suffering becomes the very thing that softens our hearts, makes us more compassionate, more patient, more real. It teaches us to pray with sincerity, to listen with empathy, to serve without ego. In short, it makes us more like Christ. You will not find anyone truly successful truly strong, truly wise, who has not suffered deeply, and those who have allowed suffering to shape them, rather than destroy them, carry a kind of quiet authority, a radiance, a depth, because they know what most try to avoid, that pain, when offered to God, becomes a gift. Do not be afraid of the fire. Let it do its work. Let it burn away the pride, the fear, the false attachments. Let it purify your desires, so that only what is true remains. For suffering will either make you bitter or it will make you holy. The difference lies in how you respond. So when suffering comes, and it will, don't curse it and don't waste it. Carry it, offer it, unite it with the cross, and trust that the God who allows the fire also walks with you through it, not to destroy you, but to make you new, to make you gold. We live in an age obsessed with image. People curate their lives for cameras, measure their worth in clicks, and shape their identities by how they are seen rather than who they are. But if success is built on illusion, it is not success at all. It is a fragile facade, one gust of truth away from collapse. Real greatness, lasting success, comes not from how you appear, but from who you are when no one is watching. That is the measure of integrity. Integrity is not glamorous. It does not always bring applause. It will often cost you something, an opportunity, a promotion, a friend who prefers flattery over honesty. But what it gives you is far more valuable: a clean conscience, an unshakable peace, and the quiet confidence that comes from being the same person in private as you are in public. To have integrity means to live without duplicity. It means you do not wear masks, play roles, or say what people want to hear just to gain favor. It means you do what is right, even when it is hard, even when it is costly, even when no one notices, because you are not living to impress others. You are living to be true, your convictions, to your calling, and to your Creator. Image is fleeting. It can be built in a day and destroyed in a moment. A reputation can be manufactured with clever words and edited photos. But integrity is forged over time in the hidden places of the soul. It is the result of countless decisions to choose truth over convenience, humility over pride, faithfulness over popularity. There is something powerful about a person who refuses to lie, who will not betray a trust, who does not speak one way and live another. They walk through the world with a rare kind of strength. They may not be the loudest, the flashiest, or the most followed, but they are the ones people trust, the ones people remember when the crisis comes, because when everything else collapses, character remains. We must ask ourselves honestly, who are we when no one is looking? Who are we when there's no applause, no reward, no audience? That answer is everything, because on the day we meet God face to face, He will not ask how many followers we had or how polished our brand was. He will ask if we lived in truth, if we were faithful in the little things, if we chose honesty when it was inconvenient and purity when it was painful. The world may celebrate image, but heaven honors integrity. And in the end, only one judgment matters, not from a crowd, but from the one who sees the heart. So if you must choose, and you will choose integrity over image, let your inner life be stronger than your outer presentation. Let your character speak louder than your appearance, and live in such a way that your reputation could disappear tomorrow, and yet your soul would still be at peace. For it is not what people say about you that defines you. It is what God sees in you that makes you truly successful. There comes a moment in every life when we must decide, will we live for the approval of many or the approval of one? The world pulls us in countless directions, each demanding our attention, our allegiance, our performance. It whispers constantly, be liked, be noticed, be accepted. But beneath that noise is a deeper call, quieter, but infinitely more powerful. It is the call to live not for the applause of the crowd, but for the smile of God, to live for the audience of one. Living for the audience of one is a radical act in a world that worships visibility. It means that your worth is not tied to how many people see your efforts or praise your work. It means that your motivation is not applause, recognition, or reward. It is faithfulness. It is obedience. It is love for the one who sees in secret. When you live for the audience of one, your life gains clarity. You are no longer enslaved by comparison, no longer anxious about opinions, no longer distracted by trends. You become focused, centered, free. You begin to realize that the gaze of God is enough, that His affirmation is worth more than all the likes, trophies, and titles the world can offer. This kind of life is not easy. It requires detachment from ego, from vanity, from the insatiable need to be seen. It requires courage to be misunderstood, to stand alone, to be faithful when no one else seems to care. But it is the only life that leads to true peace. For when your heart is anchored in God, you are no longer tossed by the winds of public opinion. So many live on a stage, constantly performing, constantly adjusting their lines to fit the crowd's mood. But that is a weary life, a life of masks, a life that may win approval but loses authenticity. God does not call you to be a performer. He calls you to be a person of truth, a soul who walks humbly, serves quietly, and trusts deeply. Think of the saints. Many of them died unknown to the world, no headlines, no praise, yet heaven knew their names because they lived for the audience of one. They swept floors, cared for the sick, forgave enemies, endured suffering, not for glory, but out of love. Their lives were sermons, though few ever heard them. Their reward was not in time, but in eternity. When you live for the audience of one, your definition of success changes. You no longer ask, "What will they think?" but, "Is this pleasing to God?" You no longer seek to impress, but to serve. You measure your life not in popularity, but in purpose. This does not mean you hide from the world. It means you shine in the world, not for yourself, but for the one who gave you your light. You speak, you build, you love, you lead, not to be seen, but because you were sent. Every action becomes a prayer, every moment an offering, every success a way to glorify the giver of all gifts. In the end, all other audiences will fade, the stage lights will dim, the voices of praise and criticism will fall silent, and you will stand before the only one whose opinion ever truly mattered. On that day, may you hear not the roar of a crowd, but the quiet, eternal words, "Well done, good and faithful servant." So live today as if that moment is near, because it is, and in that simple, sacred truth lies the secret of a life well lived and a soul truly successful. And so I say to you, the only thing that makes anyone successful is a life offered in love, forged in sacrifice, and guided by truth. That success does not age, it does not fade, it echoes in eternity. Go then, not in search of ease, but in search of excellence, not in pursuit of fame, but in pursuit of faithfulness, for that, and that alone is success.